there was a whole range of stuff from Ben working in beta, working scrappy, which I absolutely loved. Jeff, a shift in trust over the last 4 or 5 years to get to where you are. I don't know, can I just have a show of hands from the audience? How many of you, or your colleagues at agency level, are invited to sit in your big client's internal strategy, trading, commercial meeting on a weekly basis? Is that, I don't know this, is that permeated throughout the whole industry? How many have that experience of briefing from the inside? Right, so that's quite rare. So Jeff, I'm going to come to you in a second, ask you how that works, when you got to that, who made that decision, and how can these guys go back and say to their clients, by the way, that happens at Virgin Media, and that's why they're so bloody successful. We had process from you, Jeremy, and you talked about something that then was touched on by Greg, the gift of time, having the time. And Greg, sorry, but you were so wide-ranging, and you kind of told me off, and I'm not even a planner, but you had lots to say about the next 10 years and how we have to adjust, but also really getting these guys to redefine their own jobs in a new era and make sure that we're still doing best practice. So, Jeff, as promised, I'm going to come to you and we're going to hop around, and please let me know if you want to speak.
Am I mic'd up? Yeah. Look, it's simple maths for me. So normally, the smartest man in the agency or woman in the agency is the head of planning. And normally on client business, you get a very small percentage of their time. So for me, if you get 10% of their time, I want that 10% in the one meeting every week where the biggest decisions are going to be made. Because I want them to go back, having spent their 10%, and spend 20 hours of their week, weekend, evening, sleeping, thinking about those problems. So it was a simple equation for me, mathematical equation. And
when did it happen? When did it start?
Not that long ago, actually. It was probably midway through last year. So we changed agencies at the start of last year, so 12, 13 months ago, and it probably happened halfway into our journey. I'm glad it did, actually, because I think we have many, many more conversations about commercial planning, not strategic or creative planning today, than we did at the start of last year.
Is commercial planning more important than creative planning to you?
Depends on the business. So there's a time for all of them, but you don't create anything or strategize anything if it doesn't deliver commercially. So commercial planning sits at the heart of every type of planning in my book.
And just quickly, I mean, that would... Look, I came to this knowing nothing and had a word with Amelia about the right questions to ask, and one of mine was a process question, and she said, try and stick to creativity. But the process question was, isn't this just about relationships? Don't we know more about our clients' businesses the more conversations internally we have? Wouldn't that solve your question of not getting time, a 3-month planning process, because you're saving time almost by doubling up? You don't have to then go and brief your agency if your agency was in there hearing the thing, hearing the problem.
I completely agree. I mean, I think that, look, in the old days, I mean, I hate saying that in the old days, it's really bad, isn't it? But you've got to know your P&L. I mean, in the end, you employ people to help you grow your business or hit some objectives. And if they don't understand the anxieties you're going through, and so you phone an agency in a panic because something's not working the way you want it to do. If they don't understand the raw dynamics of your business, if they don't understand the sensitivities, if they're not taken seriously by, your boss and their bosses, then there's a kind of breakdown. And you're right, if you could be in that meeting, that might be the one thing you want to do. If you could be in that meeting, and some of it's sensitive information that clients can't always give out, but if you could be in that meeting and go back all that week and spend all weekend.
So, first tip for the evening, 50-second tip for the evening, go back and figure out how you build a relationship with your clients to get them to feel comfortable, you learning about their business from the inside. Before we come to our first question in the audience, Ben, you work scrappy and you don't brief well for a number of reasons. You sprinting environment permanently and product and marketing blurry, you're uncomfortably ambitious. Does agency structure work for you, or does it matter that these guys are planners and not creatives and not suits? And how does it work, or do you just need friends in the room that get you, trust you, and use your products?
I think I hinted at this when I was talking about, we don't really mind what people are called. I mean, you can tell someone who's smart and someone who's not smart. So, you want the useful person in the room. Sometimes it's actually creative directors, can be excellent planners. Often, actually.
Yeah.
Because they're just great at simplifying stuff. So, agency structure, so they work. We don't slavishly insist on having, a certain number of people from this discipline and this discipline and this discipline. It's just more, tell us who our two main people are. That's great. They can build whatever team they think that we need. So we I don't know if that answers your question, but we don't tend to fill slots.
You just do.
We just do, but we love planners. We love the planning sensibility, but more with those planners who have a bias to action than chart making.
Chart making.
If that's a word.
First question from the audience. I was going to say, introduce yourself and tell me where you're from, but Mark Howe from Google.
Yeah. Sorry to hog the first question, but actually it's to all you guys. And Greg, I thought you touched on earlier was from a Weetabix point of view. You talked about in those days your planners or your agencies were paid to think. They were paid for their time. They're paid for their talent. I was refreshed with Jeremy. You talk about having 10% to test and learn and experiment, and from Jeff, from the point of view that from Jeff, you want the best talent and you want them to be part of your business, and yet is not one of the problems, the dilemmas of the relationships that agencies have with clients today is that procurement has overtaken that creative process and that desire for you to have the best people, and as a result, you're probably not paying enough to get them to think and to be different and to experiment and to have more than just the 2% one is over the weekend, Jeff, and because he's doing it over the weekend, and you're probably not paying him for that. And I see that working at Google and YouTube, that we think the agency community and even the client community, is years behind where the consumer is, and I don't think most clients are paying their agencies to allow them to catch up.
Who's got a really, really strong answer to that? How can you have a partnership if you're not paying your...
Listen, I genuinely don't believe this procurement thing. If you've got a strong enough relationship with your client, right, they will have you in the room and they will pay for you. Don't get me wrong, procurement people play a fundamentally important part of the exercise, right? I've met some of them, they're completely mad, but if you've got a good client and if your relationship is strong enough, right? Could you imagine your procurement people saying to you that you're not going to work with somebody because, it's just complete rubbish. So the point, though, is are you making yourself indispensable personally as part of that relationship? And I think more often than not, the answer to that is no. As a result of that, when the procurement people go, sorry, you can't have blah, 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 then you'd start seeing those things pulling away. And I think that's what I'm getting at in terms of it's not difficult to find a procurement person that will say, one person in the room said they sat in those meetings that are about commercial. Well, they're going to go, how close do they know the commercial numbers? Right, okay, we don't need them then.
Okay,
and maybe it's not procurement, maybe it is just the fact that our agency is brave enough now to stand up in the current climate and actually, as you said, stand up and be counted and actually demand the right fee for the right job.
Clients are paying for it elsewhere, so why aren't they paying for it with you?
So I don't know if you're noticing what I'm seeing here, but I'm getting a sense that as Greg talks, the others are all nodding, which means they've formed into a gang, which means you've made them dangerous, so thanks for that. There's a question over there I really want to get to, but you need to weigh in.
Just very, very quickly. We put in perspective when we speak to procurement, and you kind of go, right, you can have this kind of quality of personnel coming from your agency and the time involved, or you can get another press ad. And one press ad versus having potentially someone come into your meetings that's going to add so much more value is going to be better than what you're going to get from that one extra media placement. And that's how we sort of justify it.
Will you go back tomorrow and invite agencies into your weekly strategy commercial meeting?
We don't go literally as far as that, but it's been a massive shift. I've been at O2 for 4 years now, and I would say back when I first started, we would never have the agency coming into sessions speaking to our internal product teams, for example, and understanding how they've devised it from day one. Now, we're getting them involved in the same session, so it's really collaborative, and they're starting thinking of it right from the start.
Thank you. If anyone has got an answer to this quote that I'll take again, that this procurement thing doesn't exist, pile in. Yes, over there, far corner. What's your name?
Philippa Dunjay.
And where are you from, Philippa? Albion?
Yeah.
What's your question?
I was wondering if you could allow people to maintain some kind of cultural difference or let them keep an outside view, if you as clients would be better served by bringing your creativity in-house instead of briefing it out to agencies?
So that's about an in-house versus the agency. Where are you going to get your best creativity from? Have you got someone you want to direct at, or
No, just in general.
Jeff? Shall we hear from you?
Did you say Philippa? Yeah, we have both actually, Philippa. So we have an in-house creative team and we pay for creativity out of house. Best scenario for me is both actually. So they tend to work quite closely together. So we have an in-house creative director who's got 10 years of experience of what's worked around the commercials of our business and what works with the product leads and just kind of what's going to get through quickly and save a lot of crap. And he'll work very closely with the creative heads at the agency to effectively let them get to the best answer quicker than they would be able to by themselves. So in my experience, and I've tried always, so when I was at Honda, no creativity in-house, all out-house worked great. Virgin works great. I think it's so much about the people and not the formula, to use a term that was used earlier. I think both can work, actually.
So Nike's just bought its social media work in-house on the basis that it wants to use the data, I suppose, to get to know its customer and get closer to the customer. So it's almost using it as an insight tool. I think the commentary's been, can you get the same level of taking care of things, of creativity, of planning, of ideas, of new thinking without having an agency?
I think what I would say is much more difficult for a client to get the quality of in-house creative that an ad agency or a creative agency would get. And in my experience as well, in-house creatives, really good creatives, can often spend an hour creating a poster for the back of the toilet door asking someone to flush and wash their hands. So, there's no point bringing... That tends to happen, because once they're there, everyone wades in because they've got a little brief for something that's a kind of a pet project.
So, we have another question over here. This gentleman's had his hand raised for a few minutes. Am I all right for time, Joyce? Good.
So this won't take long anyway. I thought, Greg was saying about sort of 3-month planning cycle took me back, which is great if you're a client. It's not so good if you're an agency, you've got 2 clients with the same planning process. But I just wondered what Ben would do, given that he works at 100 miles an hour and it's, everything happens instantly, if actually all of a sudden Google stopped working that way and you were given a 3-month planning cycle. What would you do differently?
Wow. It's a good question. Probably waste a lot of time. Or, I think, the truth be told, we often have 3 months, as it turns out, as things slip back. But we'd probably have started making something 2.5 months previously and have iterated what we'd made rather than presented something at the last minute which was ready for air or to be launched. So we bias towards almost like the brief becomes tangible and real in the act of making something, which is then altered and changed and morphed versus, oh great, we've got a month for planning now. So probably nothing would change, but we'd probably fiddle with what we had for longer, which we do much to the frustration of people who work with us. So I think that's what I would do.
Thank you very much. Good question.
Yeah.
There's another one over there. That end of the room seems to be massively dominating for a sense of inquiry. Who are you? Tell us your name.
And it's just because I'm interested, but what's next after the Olympics stint? Because it's quite good.
I can't get away with answering that now, can I? I'm reacclimatising. The truth is, I didn't go out for like 2 years and didn't have a drink for 3 years. And so I learned how to drink again. And I'm going to keep going until I don't answer the question. I'm going to set something up with a brilliant guy called Godric Smith, who was the Executive Director of Communications at number 10 Downing Street and previously the Comms Director for the Olympic Project. And it's not an agency. People kind of go, oh, are you going to set an agency up? I think there's some brilliant agencies out there and we definitely don't want to kind of create one. But I think the way that we worked together was just, I loved working with his brain and the way our brains worked together on that project. And the truth is, from a very personal level, so I'm sorry about this, guys, because you're all more interested in me, but I can't imagine working on something and giving as much as I did to that project next. So I think the future will have to be a bit different, I think. I'd like to find out how to use the Nate Silver's aggregating polling techniques to work out the future of brand market share. I'm genuinely serious. If anyone thinks they can help me do that, then tweet me.
Thanks.
Thank you for the future of Greg Nugent. Over there again.
Hey, hello. I'm actually client side and tagged along here with my agency today. And I was just wondering if you have experience with working with multiple agencies. I mean, you're all talking about bringing the planner into your meetings. I'm working in the direct marketing department. I'm part of a much larger Marcoms organization, and we have a multitude of agencies who all need to somehow work together in delivering a campaign. If I think of talking to our director and say, I want to bring in my planner, he will say, well, we need to bring all of the planners. That's not going to work, so we won't bring any of them. So I wonder, have you had any experience with appointing maybe one lead agency, and how do you deal with the competition between agencies because they all want to be that person?
It's a great question. And so before I go to the panel, can I just reflect it back at you? So do you see the value in the bringing the agency in, or is it just that it would be difficult to do?
I see absolute value in it. I'm thinking of the organization I'm in, and I wonder how to sell it in a way that is workable.
Okay.
Because of working with 8 different agencies, how do you make that happen? Because they can't all 8 join. Right.
Now here's the mission, guys. She needs to sell it in. She'd like to sell it in. And I know all of you have worked in, I used to talk to Sally Cowdery at O2 when she talked about that Wednesday meeting where you got all 8 agencies around a table. That's not the same as what Jeff's doing. So how can we now unlock the problems, the challenges, and enable these guys to go and sell in that crucial and rather big and scary idea? Can we start with you, Jeremy, and then we'll work around, see if we can help her out.
So at the start of the year, for example, we will have our 2013 planning session, and we will have all of our key partners there to take them on that journey with us. But then you might have specific problems throughout the year, or a specific campaign. It might be specifically on digital and that 10% innovation point I was talking about, where you want a wide-ranging number of different opinions. And so on that specific project, then we would invite, the various different incumbents to give their views on it. And that's hopefully how you'll get, the best result at the end. But obviously, we have our lead agency, and we would obviously include them in that process.
Does the lead agency always work for you, and what does that do? Does that create a hierarchy where ideas will always filter through that agency? What's the role for a non-agency? What's the role of a lead agency? Why have one?
Because about the relationship point, you want that intrinsic understanding, from the inside. So you absolutely want that to run through the strategy throughout the year. But there will be specific projects where you just want, right, I want some fresh minds on this. And it might be that actually your lead agency comes back still because they understand the business so well. They come back with the perfect solution.
Does anybody here have a client, sorry to cut you off, does anybody here have a client where you're all part of a flat structure with other agencies and there is no lead agencies? Is that common? Fill me in and stop me being so ignorant. Does that work? Somebody from over there, does that kind of work for you, and how does that work? And would you be able to foresee something happening with kind of Jeff's situation and scenario where you're invited in as part of the in-house team almost?
Well, the experience we've had in working is we've been uninvited from the internal
How
meeting.
excellent, how forward-thinking.
Because the other agencies wanted to come too, and they chose to flat.
So we get back to the bun fight
Back
thing.
to the same problem.
Answer the problem, Jeff.
In my experience, so I'll say something quite controversial. If you have a lot of agencies and you ask them whether there's a lead agency, they all say no, except for the ad agency. And largely that's how it plays out. And that's not a bad thing, because someone at some point is going to take a lead. And it would be lovely to say if it's a media problem, the media agency take the lead. If it's a direct problem, direct agency takes the lead. Generally, if it's just a problem, the ad agency or the creative agency where you're paying for the planning takes the lead. 2 experiences I've had recently. I walked into our ad agency this week, I think, and walked past our media head of planning for our media agency, sitting with the head of planning for the ad agency, having a conversation. And I said, what are you doing here? He said, we're just having a planning meeting. I also walked through our building the other day and saw our ad agency planners and account team heading off past me. I said, are you off? What meeting are you here for? And they said, we're here to meet the product teams. We're just having a commercial meeting. And actually, that's amazing. It doesn't always happen that way, because then I don't really care who's in that meeting, because I'm fairly confident they're going to talk to each other. But actually, it's the ad agency head of planning that's in that meeting because we wanted to choose one, and I just have to trust and rely on the fact that he's going to talk to everybody else if he thinks it's appropriate. It's not perfect. In a perfect world, you'd have 50 people in there, but you'd never make a decision and nothing would get done.
Does that answer your question?
Can I just add something?
unsatisfactorily
Can I
or
add something to that?
satisfactorily. Yeah, yeah, please do.
I don't know, I'm ever so slightly alarmed at the kind of emphasis on meetings. So there's a lot of kind of like, who's in which meeting and can I have this? And, you know, you obviously have a kind of cool thing, which you do have a good meeting. You would say that. But I don't know, I think you should just forget the meetings and just try not to be worried about the meetings and try and figure out, you know, how to get round the fact that you're not in a room. I don't know, it just feels odd. It's like, I want to be in a meeting. We hate meetings. So, you know, most people don't get lots out of meetings, especially when there's like, more than 5 people. So, I don't know, I would, my advice would be to figure out every possible way to not be in a meeting. You know, and still be influential, which is obviously the challenge, but I would hate you to take away, anyone to take away the kind of, you know, urge to kind of, the meetings are where everything happens. Everything's outside the meetings for me. All the cool stuff happens outside the meetings.
That's excellent. Turn it on its head. Get uninvited to meetings and be proud of it.
Yeah, well done.
I'm going to go over here.
Is that really quick?
I'm going to go over here for a question, but Greg absolutely is bursting to speak on this.
Well, we've tried it. I mean, and it's just always, I always cocked it up, quite frankly. But I like this democracy thing of just everybody speak, right? And everybody contribute. The truth is, you need a lead strategist, right? You have to have a lead strategist. You have to be able to look someone in the eye and ask you to deliver this stuff. The truth is, you shouldn't always have one. If you've got a choice, brilliant. But don't lean on them all at the same time. You know, like, if you've got a problem, there'll be some people that'll be better. They don't actually all have to be working in your agencies to help you do that. But you need a lead strategist.
Okay. And we have time for one more question. I'm going to throw over to this side of the room. Can you tell us who you are and where you work and who you are and everything about you?
Hi, my name's Nicolin. I'm a planner at Good Relations Group, which is the PR division of Chime.
I was bluffing when I said tell us who you are and where you work. She sits right by me at work. So that was for your benefit. I represent you, etc.
And when he's going to the shops at lunchtime and asks me...
It's not a question. You can ask a question.
Anyway, listen, what...
It's all funny. I said, do you need anything from the outside world? And she said, yes, preparation H, please. And I didn't know her very well, so I was like, really? You want that? And she started laughing. It was all very funny. The question.
What seems to be... What strikes me out of this is there's a kind of parent-child rift going on here, whereas in the old days, it was the agency was the child and the client was the grown-up, and the client was the kind of moderator of the agency's youthful exuberance and innocence and capacity for mischief and fun. But that now seems to have flipped, and you guys over on the client side seem to be the ones having all the fun and making... Do you think that's true? Do you think agencies have had to grow up a lot and that kind of relationship has switched over? And what difference do you think it's made to the briefing process?
So are we all too grown up as agencies? Are we too scared of what you're going to say? Are we doing that thing that in fact all of you charged us with doing, which is tell you what you don't want to hear, tell you what you haven't asked for? Are we doing enough of the mischief and the fun, or are you having all the fun right now? Tell us more. Greg?
I think it's a great question. The truth is, agencies were the ones that used to teach clients about identity. And too many of them now actually don't have their own identity. And they've commoditized a lot of the offer. However, the brilliant ones who are full of identity can still teach the world how to do this stuff. I don't think it has ended up as having all the fun, because in the end, it's a different kind of challenge. But I do think that maybe the agencies are the people that end up pointing out like how you do this right and wrong. They bring a skill to the table that we don't have mostly in-house. Even the in-house stuff is different, which you're hearing. And I think maybe in a lot of cases, because there are now too many agencies, in my view, and we've spread the talent, and as a result of that, some of them have just lost their own identity, and as a result of that, clients have become more dominant.
Anyone else on that kind of relationship reverse and switch?
It depends how you define fun for me. So if fun is, well, it depends. So in the old days, fun might have been out having a party, having a laugh. It's too busy and it's too difficult, and the environment is too hard to work in. Agencies are bloody busy at the moment, and they're nervous about losing clients, and the clients are desperately trying to deliver numbers in really difficult climates. Everyone's really busy. For me, if you're in it together being busy, and you know it's difficult together, on both sides, you tend to get through it much easier. I don't think fun can be defined in the same way as perhaps it was 10 years ago or 15 years ago.
I'd just add to that, to the point I made earlier, it's more fun being a head chef than a waiter. So I think if agencies can get back to kind of creating and surprising clients, it's more fun than just doing what you're told. And I think and it's more valuable as well. So I think that's where the mischief is to be found.
What I was going to say is it comes back to my point about empowerment. I mean, yes, in the past, absolutely, clients used to be very directional. Agencies go away, do it, but absolutely not now. As far as OT is concerned, we absolutely, need to have that challenge coming back, because we wouldn't have had a lot of the great ideas like, the dome converting into the O2 arena, some of the big, massive ideas. And if we hadn't have given that sort of creative license and opened the doors to say, challenge us, we might be going down the wrong way. What do you think? So I think it's a balance. I think you've got to have that respect and that trust.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to thank you all for being fabulous and a pleasure to work with. But actually, Amelia's going to do that job in a couple of minutes because she invited you, and that's the right thing to do. But what I would like to say is the IPA put together this session for you because it felt that you needed to hear from clients, and this is called Clients Talk Back. And what I've heard from a non-traditional agency point of view, from the journalistic point of view, is something amazing. We've heard some incredibly honest inside views from 4 people who have been involved in some of the biggest businesses and projects of the decade. And we've heard pretty much the only thing, my favourite thing about a panel is when everyone disagrees to a certain extent. I hate panels where everybody just nods along and says, yeah, it's just same as he said, same as she said. This was great for me because we heard there were no patterns or trends. Perhaps the one thing we've heard everybody say is that things have changed, but actually change is good, and the change that's happened in 4 years, in Jeff's eyes, has built some trust and relationships. Somebody says there's too much change. We've changed too much. We're trying to overfix. We've heard about process. We've heard about discipline. We've heard about no discipline. That's you on the end. And it's fabulous, and it works. So lots and lots of things. I was going to ask for a kind of 3 tips for the audience to do things differently tomorrow, but I fear that would have been redundant just because the whole thing for me has been tip heavy. So if you have been making notes and drawing special planners diagrams with overlapping Venns and all sorts of things, well done you, because you're going home with some real treasure. So I'm going to say on my behalf, thank you so much, and call Amelia to the stage.
The hope for this evening was, I guess, to get us out of a planning fishbowl. And personally, I feel that I'm very much out of a fishbowl because actually, I guess your point about be where the real discussions about strategy are happening as opposed to advertising planning. And it's the strategy group, it's not the planning group. And actually, all of these have certainly helped me to step back and think about what's the business that we're in. And yes, it's a creative industries and it's a creative services, but actually, it's the business of business. And we've got to use creativity to unlock value and to help still shift palettes. And I think for me, it was a fascinating evening in so many ways, but it was quite a grown-up evening. Grown up but inspiring and challenging and provocative, which I think are a great combination. So again, reiterating Mark, a huge thank you to the panellists, to Ben, who's come all the way from New York, to everyone else who's come slightly shorter journeys, but have given up an evening, and I hugely appreciate that. And thank you from behalf of everybody here today.